5 general sleep tips that can actually make your sleep worse, not better, especially when you're struggling with long-term sleep problems or insomnia. So in this video, we're really going to look at long-term sleep problems and how these sleep tips might actually influence your sleep in a negative way, not what you would have expected, and an improvement doesn't come just because you try them or put them into your life. Now, before we jump into the content, I wanted to welcome you to my community. If you're returning, thank you so much for continuing to come back and watch these videos and put things in place for you as well. And if you're new, then let me just introduce myself. My name is Beatrix Schmidt, and I'm a sleep coach, professional speaker, and the creator of the Sleep Skills for Life program, which is my way of helping clients like you who have been struggling with long-term insomnia and sleep problems. So feel free to check it out. The details are below. And if you want to receive notifications when I post new videos, make sure you hit that subscribe button below and that little bell as well, so I can let you know when these videos go live every week. So now that we covered that, let's actually look at what are these 5 tips that I have seen come up in my work over the years and why they might not be helping you really. So the first thing is using exercise to exhaust yourself towards your evening. So this is an advice that has been given out for a period of time now, and I have come across clients who actually really consistently ended up exercising quite late in the evening, hoping that the level of tiredness that they might experience after the exercise will actually help them to either fall asleep easily or sleep through the night in a better way. Now, what tends to happen is when you become very exhausted, your body doesn't always necessarily able to create relaxation. So sometimes the more exhausted you become, the more your body goes into this flight or fright state, because you have put the body under so much pressure by exhausting yourself that it needs that recovery before it can even go to relaxation. So you can't go from being exhausted to being relaxed in 5 seconds. The body has to go through those steps to actually calm you down physically, mentally, and emotionally. So exhaustion, in some of my previous clients' example, has actually caused their mind to go into protection and actually not help them to fall asleep easily. And of course, a lot of exercise can also cause muscle pain. So if you're really exhausted yourself and you overworked your body in a physical way, it can then cause the body to really struggle with that recovery, causing either pain or some other discomfort. So this is one of the things that I've seen over and over with clients who have either tried that or experimented with exercise late at night. And the other thing here is, just because you think extreme tiredness will help you fall asleep, it doesn't mean that falling asleep is going to be the same quality. So you might fall asleep because you are exhausted, but some of my clients in the past, they found that actually they woke up a couple of hours later and then they weren't able to fall into sleep again. Now, what that shows us a lot of the times is, just because you're exhausted and you fall asleep as soon as your head hits the pillow, it doesn't mean that your body has transitioned in a physical, mental, and emotional preparation way and get ready for sleep. So that process of falling asleep and switching off in the evening didn't happen, which is why then if you wake up in the middle of the night, you can't recreate it. Now, a better way to approach this is, of course, make sure you exercise, but actually look at your exercise accordingly to where you're at. If your body is already exhausted because you've been struggling with not getting good quality sleep for many weeks, I would not suggest that you push your body even further. You know, you want to be kind to your body and actually support it first, because you elevate the amount of exercise that you do during the day. So I would really look at how much exercise you do and how well your body can recover and get ready for sleep rather than becoming exhausted. So this is one of the sleep tips that I've seen over the years that just doesn't seem to make sleep better. And it can really help, it can really hinder the body's ability to really enjoy better quality sleep, because their exhaustion actually creates different processes overnight. That recovery process might not mean that you're able to enjoy a better quality sleep. So that's one of the first tips that I've seen over the years that doesn't actually translate to better quality sleep. The second tip is having a very rigid, regimented bedtime routine in the evening. So this is again a little bit different. Now, of course, bedtime routines I use in my practice, but I often had clients who had such a regimented, almost unhelpful and stressful evening routine that actually meant that by the time they got to bed, they were too worked up to be able to fall asleep. So one of the examples from a recent client was actually that there was so many alarms to say, I've got to do this, I've got to do that, I've got to do the other thing, to lead up to sleep, that this element of stress has become the reason why the person wasn't really able to really go to bed in a restful way. So I would suggest you look at really using what works, rather than really have a list of things, a long list of things that you think you might need to be able to fall asleep. And again, this is one of that misconception I see. Often clients who have struggled with long-term sleep problems, there is this element of desperation. I'm just gonna try whatever I can to make sure that it happens. So there is this element of stress or tension even going into the bedtime routine, causing the body not to be able to relax. So if that's you and you can really relate to this, what I would suggest you do is look at what you do and just pick 2 to 3 things that are actually working for you. Now those 2 to 3 things need to be done before you get into bed. So the purpose of what we would call a bedtime routine, in my world, it's a preparation for sleep, a physical, mental and emotional preparation for sleep. The purpose of that is to really help you to close the day and get you ready for sleep, not just get you ready to climb into bed and then you don't know how you're going to actually be able to fall asleep easily. So that's the difference between how I approach this idea of sleep preparation versus maybe just calling it a bedtime routine that isn't really helping you and it's not creating consistent results. Now, on the other hand, of course, if you have a bedtime routine that you really like and it does help you, then of course that's really good. But you're probably watching this video because some of those things you've tried and tested over the years have not resulted in a positive sleep improvement. So that's where you really need to be very honest with yourself and say, are these things that I'm doing before climbing into bed helping, or actually half of them I don't even enjoy? So that's a really good place to start. And like I said, just pick 2, maybe 3 things that you can do to help your body to prepare for sleep in a physical, mental or emotional way. The next sleep tip, the third sleep tip that doesn't seem to help clients improve their sleep, is taking notes in the middle of the night of their worries or maybe even their sleep experience. So I've seen this often as well over the years, where if you're struggling in the middle of the night, you might have been advised to use a notepad and put it by the side of the bed. And if you wake up in the middle of the night and you can't fall back into sleep, turn the lights on and write out the things that perhaps maybe bother you or entertain your mind. Now, in theory, that tip isn't fully bad, but what I've seen with that is itself, waking up in the night, turning the lights on and then writing can become a negative habit, which then stops you to be able to sleep through the night. So as you might be waking up from one sleep stage to the other, your mind becomes awake And then the first thing your mind will start thinking about is, oh my gosh, I must write down these things because otherwise I have no chance of falling back into sleep. But that's not actually true. What I found with clients is if you have not prepared well for sleep, meaning your mind is still busy, you still got problems you haven't let go, you haven't really closed your day, those are the things that will pop up in the middle of the night. So writing notes in the middle of the night is already a bit too late for you to really develop a good quality skill set of sleeping through the night. So what I would suggest, if this is something that you've tried, tested, and you still use, even though it might not be fully helpful, move it to the daytime. So I do use writing and certain journaling exercises depending on the client to help them, but not in the middle of the night. Now, in this particular example, it's really important to know that if you struggle with the really extreme emotions, either anxiety, panic attacks, and so on, it's important to seek appropriate help, because we're just covering general tips that people pick up online. If your situation's a little bit more on that part, then you need to have appropriate support and help to overcome that. Now let's go into the fourth tip that I often see online. And again, this goes back into sort of the evening preparation part, is drinking a hot cup of tea. Usually chamomile is recommended, or other versions of calming, relaxing tea. Now, again, don't get me wrong, I love tea, but sometimes what I've seen with clients is they affiliated a cup of tea with this idea that that's the only thing that can help them to sleep. Now, a calming tea can help you to relax, but often it does not guarantee that your body and your mind is ready for sleep, meaning that physical, emotional, and mental preparation. Now, you can combine them, but I have had clients in the past who have said, yes, I've been drinking that tea, but I don't even enjoy it. I just do it because I hope it's going to help me. So whatever you do, please make sure you actually enjoy it. There's no point you drinking something that might not address the problem you have, for example, a busy mind, or maybe a stressful situation you're still thinking about. Just because you drink a cup of tea doesn't mean that your body and your mind is able to relax about it and let it go. So I would look at whether or not you even start with drinking something, and whether or not it actually affects you to either go to the toilet in the middle of the night or not. So that's another negative example of this, drinking something too late in the night. Depending on how your body deals with these different things, it could mean that because you drank a huge cup of hot tea, it then wakes you up a couple of hours later and you're now having to go to the toilet because you've done that. So look at these cause and effects and see whether or not you're just drinking tea because you enjoy it, not affiliated to sleep, but you're just doing it because it's a sense of enjoyment and you like the cup of tea, and how it then transfers into the nighttime experience and maybe your toilet breaks. So that's another good example of a general tip that does not work for everyone, especially if they struggle with long-term sleep problems and insomnia. And then the fifth tip that we are going to look at is actually more about waking up in the morning. So a lot of the times clients come to me when they've already had picked up some tips and advice about putting their sleep into a time frame. Often they refer to it as sleep restriction, which comes from a cognitive behavioral therapy perspective. Now, my work incorporates cognitive behavioral too, but if you have chosen to go down the line of sleep restriction without supervision, it can then cause you more problems. So let me give you a more tangible example here. So maybe you might have read online that you should go to bed at 10 o'clock and then count, let's say, 7 or 8 hours, and then you wake up after 7 or 8 hours. So this is what we would call as a particular sleep time frame. Now, just because you go to bed and you wake up 7 or 8 hours later, it does not mean that you're made to do it that way. So you might have read online about the different sort of versions of sleep. Some people are more of that late person, which means if you're more of a late person but you go to bed too early, it does not lead to decreasing your sleep struggles. Often it can lead to actually increased sleep struggles, because again, your body and your mind isn't really ready for sleep because it's still too awake to fall asleep. So just because you go to bed early, it does not directly relate to your ability to be able to fall asleep easily and sleep through the night. And of course, if you pick an inappropriate time frame for sleep, it then means that you're now not waking up naturally either, because you're waking up too early and it isn't suited to how your body is naturally able to enjoy that quality sleep. So just because somebody said you should go to bed at 10 o'clock, it does not mean that you are best to do that. This is one of the things I see with clients all the time, where they pick an inappropriate time frame that doesn't work for them. And then what happens is it increases their sleep struggles and their frustrations, and now we've created something else on top of the actual sleep problem that was already there. So I think you can see how these things can relate, and just because a general tip suggests something, it doesn't mean that you actually fit into that general situation. Now, of course, in certain clients' cases, it works well, but it's really looking at whether or not it works for you within the sleep problems or the insomnia problems that you have, and actually really taking you to where you want to go and what kind of sleep you actually really want to develop for many years to come. So again, in this example, you know, if you're more of a late person and you enjoy maybe watching a movie in the evening and you have the ability to sleep till, let's say, 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning, why would you want to go to bed too early and miss out on that enjoyment of the evening that really brings you joy? So I hope this makes sense too, and why I don't recommend this particular sleep tip to every single person. So these are the 5 different things that I wanted to talk to you about, the 5 general tips that I see in my practice that don't work in terms of helping you to really overcome sleep problems and insomnia that have been around for long term. Now, let me know if you have tried to put any of these things in place. Just pick the one that you perhaps have experimented with and what was the outcome. I look forward to seeing your comments below. And if you like this video, hit that like button below. If you haven't yet, subscribe to my channel and hit that little bell so I can let you know when I post new videos. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.